Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program Compliments of the Season. This is Daily Politics coming to you live on Trust TV, your go-to platform for everything politics, policy, and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Tonight on the program, we talk security as the Nigerian military has yet again come under heavy public scrutiny following the developments in Silame local government area of Sokoto State, where the recent bombings in two communities has again sparked public debate about the ability of the military to carry out targeted attacks on terrorist groups in the northwest region, where, according to the reports, some 10 persons, quote-unquote, innocent civilians, have lost their lives, and of course, leading to conversations about whether or not this was a precise attack on just the Collateral groups, because the community over there has cried foul regarding the impact of those attacks on their communities. The military's statement has reaffirmed its position about the attacks as well as the intelligence that it gathered to lead to those attacks and the impact it has had on the community. It's a conversation that has divided public opinions about the ongoing fight against terrorism, banditry, and insecurity, especially in the northwest region. So, how will this impact ongoing efforts to restore law and order, especially across vulnerable communities in the northwest region? Joining me on the program tonight is Dr. Sani Aliyu, a security expert, and to provide us with some useful tips as well as insight into the management of some of these security conversations is retired military commander Musa Suleimanu. Both will be joining me virtually for this conversation on Daily Politics tonight. But to set the ball in motion, a visit by the Chief of Defense Staff to those areas in Sokoto State where this recent bombings happened. Here's the thoughts of Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, on the recent developments and the probe that is going to unearth the truth behind the matter. His thoughts.
In those countries, if you enter most of these our neighboring countries, once you enter, they identify you as a Nigerian. You are not one of them. But unfortunately, we give them too much freedom. When they come into our own country, we accept them and so they tend to do evil against us without us knowing. But now we are taking measures. The Minister of Interior is taking steps together using the immigration, the custom, and all other aspects. We are giving them support to ensure that we enhance border management. And then the border communities also should take it as a point not to allow their areas to be used. Our appeal is to call on all Nigerians to ensure that this challenge is a Nigerian challenge. We all put hands to support the armed forces and security agencies and the enemy of the state. Those guys don't mean us well. The mistakes people tend to do is you allow them to come in with sentiments. No, they are our friends, they are our brothers, we are.
Well, the Chief of Defense Staff there speaking on a much broader conversation around Nigeria's relationship with neighboring countries, which, by the way, will be a part of the part 2 of our conversation on Daily Politics tonight, as we unearth and analyze the recent allegations that have come to light in the ECOWAS region and how Nigeria has been fingered as being a part of the problem. We have that conversation much later on. But let's kick things off with that recent military bombings, the airstrikes that has claimed the lives of at least 10 persons, devastating those two communities in the wake of those actions. The military's message is very clear. We were very precise and particular about who we were targeting, and those affected have links with the Collateral terrorist group operating in the area. However, the counter argument is that it is yet another mishap by the Nigerian Air Force, which has happened again and again in the past. Some 450 persons over the past decade have lost their lives into some of these quote-unquote mishap attacks by the Nigerian military and Air Force collectively. I believe we have retired Wing Commander Musa Suleimanu joined the conversation. He's joined us virtually. Commander, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate you for joining the conversation. Unfortunately, we have these conversations again, the backdrop of these very disturbing developments. But as someone who has served and who possibly understands what it means to put your life on the line to ensure the safety and security of lives and property, it surely pains you to see this sort of narrative and developments happen that may or may not impact the integrity of the Nigerian military. Let me get your 2 cents on what you make of the recent development.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and good evening, viewers. Yes, it's usually, or it's always a kind of solemn moment when you have to come on air to perhaps explain circumstances or certain or some of these circumstances that involve the loss of lives and possibly civilian or innocent lives, like you just highlighted. There is no person, or especially a member of the military or security forces, that will want to deliberately endanger compatriots in the line of duty. The task is to defend them. The task is to ensure that they are safe and to protect them against enemy or belligerents. So when this happens, it's always a solemn moment. It's a moment you wish never happens. But then these incidences that do happen, especially in operation.
Okay, it appears we are losing the connection there to, yeah, Wing Commander, I think we lost the connection there for a second. Do we have him back on? Okay, we're going to work on that connection to get the retired Wing Commander Musa Suleimanu back on to deliver his thoughts. Okay, Wing Commander, pardon the interruption. I think we lost the connection there for a few seconds, so you might want to recap what you were saying.
Well, sorry about the connection. So what I was saying is that incidences like this, the reality of operations that do happen. In this instance, nobody wants such incidents to happen. It's regrettable, and every loss of human life, it's something that brings sober reflection and should ensure that the military, it necessitates the need for investigations to know what actually went wrong, and put in steps or measures to ensure that this never happens again. So it's regrettable, and it's something that no compatriots or no servant or no military officer or security force will want this to happen, because your task or your responsibility is to protect. Your responsibility is to ensure that citizens feel safe when you are there, and by no means this is not what we wish to have happened. Now that it has happened, it is always an opportunity also, as bad as it is, for the security forces to ensure that this never happens again.
Yeah, but Commander, haven't we been here before one too many times before to suggest that it may happen again, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about this against the backdrop of what happened a little over a year ago in Tudumbiri, right? And I remember us having the same conversation, you and I, on a different platform. So what are the chances that this won't happen again? Because the collateral damage is sincerely getting out of hand. And these are what many Nigerians are saying, that, you know, these are one too many mistakes, apparently, on the part of the security forces.
So, you know, unfortunately, collateral damage is something that you can't completely eliminate. That's the unfortunate reality about operations, kinetic operations. However, having said that, there are procedures, there are, mitigating, there are, processes and procedures, rules of engagement, and so on, that can ensure that this is minimized to the barest minimum. When this happens, you're likely to think that what will have happened. A mind like ours starts thinking. Immediately it's reported, you're thinking, what is the likely thing that will have happened? And not to go into speculations, but generally what it shows is that perhaps there was one failure of intelligence, because when this happens, it means perhaps maybe the intelligence that was gotten was not either accurate as at the time that this kinetic action took place. There could be failure of intelligence. It could also mean that certain procedures are not followed because everything has its own procedures. Like in this case, you tend to ask questions, what was the role of maybe the fourth air controller in this? Were there kind of integration between the ground forces, that's the security or the intelligence on the ground, or even the troops on the ground, and the air assets that deliver these weapons? So you tend to ask, were there certain kind of collateral damage estimates? Did we kind of really take time to painstakingly look at the situation and see, even if we see this, the targeted or the enemies that are being targeted, what was the chances of this affecting other innocent civilians? And what is the military gains that we stood to gain to launch this attack? So all these issues or all these questions that are usually supposed to be asked between when the intelligence is gotten about these people or the movements or so on, and when this the eventual attack takes place. So because if it's an evolving, for I give an example, if it's a mobile target, let's assume these people are moving as they always do, embed themselves within the civilian population, then you have to be very, very precise and up-to-the-minute intelligence to ensure that what you have the last 10 minutes between when you pass the information and when the aircraft or whatever platform is being used is scrambled to hit the target, you have to be sure that that is really what is still the situation as at when it's reported. And there must be close contact or kind of continuous contact between the pilots, or if it is a remotely controlled platform, and the intelligence on the ground to ensure, kind of double check, always check to ensure that has anything changed? Have they moved? Is it still the same intelligence that we passed the last 30 minutes that is still existing? Has anything changed? Do we still need to go about or to drop this asset? So sometimes there is failure in that, and it could be in terms of processes. Sometimes there is failure in terms of intelligence, in terms of checking back, in terms of last minute clarification that really this intelligence is still viable, is still accurate before these ordinances are dropped. Some of these things, and I'm sure in the past instances, this investigations that have been done will have revealed this. And I'm very sure that there will have been some kind of changes here and there to ensure that this does not happen. Yes, I agree with you. We shouldn't have been talking about this at this time. We should have reached a stage that it has been drastically reduced. And I assure you that a lot is being done. I know because we engage our colleagues that are still serving, and we know that a lot of efforts are being taken a lot of the times when this happened to ensure it doesn't happen again.
For a lot of people listening to this conversation, they say history has a very funny and disturbing way of repeating itself, especially if you do not make certain corrections to address the causative factors responsible for the same incident happening over and over again. I did mention the Chidumbiri incident. First came the denial that the attack was against terrorist groups. Then came the acceptance of flaws within the intelligence gathered for this particular incident. And then there's the declaration that we're going to carry out investigations to unearth what actually happened and hold certain individuals responsible for whatever happened that led to the loss of lives. In the Chidumbiri case, for instance, we're talking about tens, hundreds of people that have lost their lives. In this particular case, in Silame local government area, we're talking about at least 10 persons that so far have been confirmed. But in the statement released by the coordinator of the Joint Media Coordination Center, a paragraph read, Importantly, the targets struck in the vicinity of Gidansama and Rumtua, the two communities affected, have been positively identified as associated with the Lakra group, reinforcing the justification for the military action taken. We saw the governor visit those communities, right? Pray for the victims in those funeral rites, and the Chief of Defense Staff also saying that a thorough investigation will commence. I mean, history is repeating itself, isn't it? The military first and foremost doubles down to say that they're very sure of their actions. Then they accept that maybe they are wrong about what actually happened. Then there's this quote-unquote investigation that is launched, but nothing comes out of it, because 1 year after Tudumbiri, we don't know of any sort of heads rolling within the military for the deaths of hundreds of people.
So let me start with the last part of it, kind of the outcome and what were the remedial actions in Tudumbiri. The fact, and we keep, like I keep saying, we keep going back and forth with those in service, that it's not enough for the military authorities to set up committees or to set up board of inquiries. And when this board of inquiries come, we keep them as either highly confidential or secret and so on and so forth. And therefore, when you make remedial actions, when you make certain changes in procedures to ensure that it never happens again, the populace are not aware of this. Or sometimes when people are really held accountable, we over-secretize things. So this is in general. And therefore, it gives the impression that nothing has been done. But I tell you, a lot has been done since Tudumbiri and today, or the last incidents that happened. There were people that were held accountable for that. I know that processes are going to ongoing, as in fact, as we speak, on the issue of holding people accountable for either errors of judgment or commission and so on. And I know that procedures from the Tudumbiri event have been kind of, certain processes have been changed, certain procedures have been changed, and even the kind of, would I call it, what are the stages before such an attack is taken. But I can understand that, you know, the military is torn between what do we release to the public and what do we keep to ourselves. But I want to urge here that it is very important that we release, or the military releases, as much as it doesn't jeopardize future operations. This is very important because it then gives the assurance to the public, which is also key and very important, that things are done when such mistakes happen, people are held accountable when they are found to be culpable, and so on and so forth. So this is me also joining to say we urge that some of this, we should declassify some of these things and make them available to the public so that the public trust is earned and the public sees that there's this response. Now, going back to the issue of, first, there is the issue of, yes, these operations are usually done based on intelligence. No doubt about that. Nobody arms an aircraft or any platform for that matter and goes to a place to launch any attack without intelligence. However, like I highlighted earlier on, this intelligence is fluid. Targets move, situations change. Now, what we must be careful about, or what we must be consistent and be very kind of emphasize on, is that the need for there to be report back to all kind of air to ground, communication, or air ground integration, as they call it, to ensure that the person in the air or the people controlling those platforms are having the up-to-date information, up-to-date intelligence, and to ensure that the targets that are struck are the right targets. Because these targets could move, they could change, situations could change, circumstances could change within seconds. And even those that are charged with that responsibility, they should know at the last minute, you have to double confirm, and that the last minute, these operations could be called off once the situation is changed, or when there is any doubt as to the fact that whether it's still these members or not. So the fact that whether it is, we've seen political leadership have already visited there, the governor has visited, and so it lends to the credence to the fact that perhaps maybe there were some civilians in the vicinity. Now, if there were civilians in the vicinity, it brings the fact that, okay, collateral damage is what is, there is collateral damage is something that cannot be totally eradicated. However, in determining what level of collateral damage should be done or is acceptable, you have to find out what is the, the importance of that target to the attainment of the military objective. I give you an example. If you're seeing maybe 2 or 3 foot soldiers of Lakurawa around, and taking them out do not change or do not alter the arithmetic on the of the game, I will assume, or in fact, it is taught that you can abort that mission, or because once you have calculated and ensured and seen that civilians are going to be affected, you abort the mission. And you can compare that with, for example, if you see the head of Lakurawa, for example, in a particular environment, and you taking him out will completely decimate the entire Lakurawa group. That's a high value target, for example. So the collateral damage can highly be higher than when it is just a foot soldier from the Lakurawa and this. But by and large, in situations where we're having that civilians bear the brunt of any attack, it shows that something was not done rightly, something was not done, some certain level of coordination was not done at that time. And this is what I think the investigation of the Board of Inquiries are going to throw out. As I know from the military, and that based on that, a lot will be done. However, I have to emphasize, and I agree with you, that a lot more needs to be done. We shouldn't be coming back on this instance as frequent as we're having.
Right. And let's just double down on that. And also, I would like to get your take on, whether it's possible to have bad intelligence, because the message, and I go back to that particular paragraph because it was very emphatic about how the targets struck in those communities were associated with the Lakurawa group. It's safe to say that a decision was made that they're guilty by association, and we can contextualize that to mean that they're either sympathetic to the group or they are providing some material support to the terrorists. And as the case may be, we do know the volatility of some of these communities means that they're at the mercy of some of these groups, and they are often used as human shields, right? Farmers are being forced to give up their farm produce. There are a variety of crimes and inhuman activities that these communities have been subjected to. But when you hear that the reason for the airstrike is because these individuals are associated with terror groups, I mean, what does that tell you about the credibility of the intelligence and also the decision-making process when you talk about due diligence? Is it enough to kill someone because they are associated with a terrorist group?
Well, upfront, I say no. It's not enough because someone is found within the vicinity, especially in circumstances like this, where those people could be held against their wish, or those people could be, those could be their homes also, and those people occupy those homes. And so, guilt by association in this instance is not enough reason for such for such incidents. What I want to imagine that the Defense Headquarters is trying to say is that based on the intelligence they have, perhaps those places were inhabited by the Lakurawa group, and perhaps by their own estimate and by the intelligence report available to them, all those were members of the Lakurawa group. Because even if it was just one person that is not a member of the Lakurawa group and is there by perhaps force or something, that one soul, innocent civilian soul, is enough to call off that operation. So I want to believe that the intelligence was that all the people there were LACRA members. However, perhaps maybe later on there's a realization that not all are members of LACRA, and that is after the fact. So this also still calls on the fact that intelligence for issues like this that could mean life and death should not be taken lightly. Those that provide the information should be very clear, and those information or those intelligence should be verified, and layers upon layers of clarification needs to be undergone before such operations are taken. And when there is any change between when decision is made to attack and when the actual attack takes place, when there is any change in circumstance, that should be reported, and that mission must be aborted. It is not acceptable in any way to harm civilians just because they are within the vicinity of for example, in this instance, LACRA or any other group for that matter.
As a retired serviceman yourself, what does this do to the confidence of those fighting in the front lines, especially when they see the public, openly criticize their actions because lives have been lost? What does this do to morale, and also if people have to pay the price because justice must be seen to be served for any innocent soul that has been taken? What does this do to the rank and file of those fighting against the bandits, against the terrorist group in the front lines?
So, the internet, I didn't get all questions, but if I got part of it, is you're asking about the issue of what is the effect of this on morale, especially when people feel that there's need to take actions against. Okay, generally, the fact is that all of us, or those that are serving, are first members of the community or are patriots before being military officers or soldiers. So that's very important. So it is viewed from a patriotic lens. So, and the issue of fairness and justice is human. Whether you're a military person or you're not, you know what is fair, you know what is just, and you know that, like we're taught during, firearms training, that it could be you. Now, so having all this at the back of the mind, I am sure that soldiers, both in the field and those of us outside here, we always want to have that sense of justice being done. When something goes wrong, we all want that there's investigation conducted, impartial investigations. We want to know what actually went wrong, both for the troops on the ground and even their commanders. And we want some level of accountability. The fact is that the military, that's the soldiers, both officers and men and women, are not averse to accountability. Everybody realizes that he must be held accountable. And that's why the military in itself, the soldier is always engaged in one of two things. The soldier is either training or fighting. When they are not fighting, they are training. And why do you train? The whole purpose of fight or training is to ensure that you fight according to the rules, that you fight and you get, apart from the fact that you want to win, but that you reduce collateral damage, especially when this collateral damage is with people that are your patriots. Democracy has been on since 1999, and you wouldn't believe it, the level of democratization that is in the psyche of the average soldier. So there is that deliberate effort to ensure that people are held accountable, because that's the dictate of democracy, and that soldiers, whether they are serving in the theater of operations or they are back in their barracks, that they are held to the highest standard possible. So in terms of morale, when soldiers know that they have erred in one way or the other, I tell you, as painful as it is, it doesn't affect morale when it is known that it is because there has been a mistake here and there. They know that the military justice system has processes or it has procedures upon which people could be held accountable. And if that does not even, it gets up to the Supreme Court. That's after general court martials and the rest have been done. There's appeals, and these cases could go as high as everywhere. So it doesn't really affect morale in the high sense, in the sense that if justice is seen to be done. However, for every fighting force, there is always that need for the civilian populace or the citizenry to give them as much cooperation, to give them as much support, to give them as much, that enthusiasm or that energy to carry the fight to the enemy. I will urge people that don't give up. I don't feel a sign of despair, because the military is a self-cleansing institution. It holds itself to high standard. Yes, once in a while they'll be caught hands down, if I put it that way. But it has mechanisms upon which to hold itself accountable. And I urge that commanders must bring up that and use it judiciously and ensure that those that are found wanting are dealt with according to the books.
Right. And Wing Commander, that is part of the problem for the most part for Nigerians, that because of this self-cleansing idea of the military, and that is why a lot of things have been swept under the rug. For the most part, the military has monopoly over policing itself, and that is also part of the problem when it comes to accountability and transparency, because a lot of people will point to the 10 and several other incidents that has happened over the course of the last decade, where Nigerians have been left dissatisfied with the outcome of those multiple investigations into several incidents that has led to the death of at least 450 plus Nigerians as far as the data is concerned. But I do take your point about how this is a work in progress, and there is a need for a lot of checks and balance to happen within the military ranks, as well as members of the public who are at the receiving end of the good and sometimes the not so good activities of the Nigerian military. Wing Commander Musa Suleimanu, as always, retired. Thank you so much for your expert analysis and insight to this developing issue. We look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Nigerians.
Right. Okay. Coming up next, we talk about regional security and a recent allegation that has come to light from Niger Republic, because the military leader had, in a sit-down, a lot to say about Nigeria, the leadership, and the plague of insecurity that is impacting the region, and how Nigeria is a part of the problem and not necessarily a part of the solution. More on that after the break.